Back at Victoria's office. The sprawling expanse of Victoria's office, with its sleek lines and opulent decor, seemed almost tranquil in the early morning light. The room was a testament to her power and success, a carefully curated blend of modern elegance and timeless luxury. Massive floor-to-ceiling windows framed a breathtaking view of the city skyline, the sun casting long shadows across the plush, cream-colored carpet that silenced every step. Victoria herself was an imposing figure behind her massive mahogany desk, her piercing green eyes fixed intently on the stack of papers and files in front of her. Her slender fingers flew across the keyboard, the rhythmic clacking a sharp counterpoint to the otherwise hushed atmosphere. The soft glow of the computer screen illuminated her chiseled features, highlighting the sharp angles of her face and the fierce determination etched into her expression. The walls were adorned with expensive artwork, carefully chosen to project an image of cultured sophistication. The desk, a masterpiece of craft skills, gleamed with a polished surface and intricate carvings. A designer chair, ergonomic yet stylish, supported her as she leaned forward, utterly absorbed in her work. Just as she was about to finish a crucial report, her phone buzzed on the desk, breaking the silence. Victoria picked it up, her voice crisp and authoritative. Victoria speaking. As she listened to the voice on the other end, her expression darkened. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw clenched, and her voice rose in anger. The voice on the other end was her business partner, Alex, and he sounded nervous. "Victoria, we have a problem. The investors are backing out of the deal. They're saying it's too risky." "What do you mean the deal isn't going through?" "I thought I made it clear that I wanted this done yesterday. Do you know how much time and effort I've put into this project? Do you know how much money is at stake?" In the corner of the room, her assistant Rachel flinched at the outburst. Victoria's face flushed with rage, her eyes blazing with fury. Her diamond necklace glinted in the light, and her designer suit seemed to shimmer with her anger. "You get them on the phone now. I don't care if they're in a meeting, or on vacation, or in the middle of surgery. I want to speak to them, and I want to speak to them now. Do you understand? Now." Rachel quickly scrambled to her feet and hurried out of the room, knowing better than to delay in fulfilling Victoria's demands. She had worked for Victoria for 5 years and had learned to recognize the warning signs of her boss's anger. She knew that when Victoria's voice dropped to a low, menacing tone, it was time to act fast, unless she would be sacked immediately. Just then, Adriana and Ariana stormed into the office, their faces set in fierce determination. Victoria's eyes flashed with annoyance, but she didn't back down. "What are both of you doing here? Can't you see I'm busy? Don't you know better than to interrupt me when I'm in the middle of a deal?" Adriana and Ariana stood firm, their voices rising in unison. "We want to be part of the company, Mother. We've earned it. We've worked hard for this family business, and we deserve a share of the profits." Victoria's laughter was a cold, mirthless sound. "You think you're entitled to it? You think you can just waltz in here and demand a share of my empire? I don't think so. I built this company from the ground up, and I won't let anyone take it away from me. Not even my own daughters." The argument escalated, with Victoria's voice growing louder and more venomous. Rachel returned with the phone, but Victoria waved her off. "I don't need it. I'll deal with these two myself." The confrontation ended with Victoria tossing a sack of cash at her daughter's feet. "Here's your money. Now get out of my office before I call security." As soon as they were gone, Victoria picked up the phone and dialed security. "I need 2 guards in my office now. I have a feeling those 2 are going to be a problem." Rachel re-entered the room, her eyes wide with concern. "Victoria, maybe you should calm down and rethink your approach. The girls are just trying to..." Victoria's glare cut her off. "I don't pay you to think, Rachel. I pay you to follow orders. So shut your goddamn mouth and get out of my sight before I lose my temper completely." Rachel quickly retreated, leaving Victoria alone with her whiskey and cigar. The flames of her anger still danced in her eyes, and the darkness of her past loomed large in her mind. She thought back to the struggles she had faced, the sacrifices she had made, and the people she had hurt and killed to get to where she was today. And she knew she would do it all again in a heartbeat to protect her empire. After everyone had left her office, Victoria stood up and walked over to the window, gazing out at the city skyline. The darkness of the night seemed to match the darkness of her soul. She stood there for a moment, lost in thought, the only sound being the soft hum of the city below. She took a swig of whiskey, her eyes narrowing as she thought of her next move. "These girls are getting on my nerves." She paced some more, her mind racing with schemes and revenge, the whiskey fueling her anger and her determination. "I am Victoria, the queen of this empire, and no one will ever take that away from me." Victoria's eyes glazed over as she gazed into the amber liquid of her whiskey, her mind drifting back to a time when she was vulnerable, desperate, and alone. She remembered the feeling of being trapped, with no escape from the misery that surrounded her. Before she met Sir Maxwell, Victoria was a struggling single mother, working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. She was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, with no hope of a better future. But then, Sir Maxwell entered their lives with his charm, wealth, and power. He promised Victoria a better life, a life of luxury and security. Sir Maxwell had been a good husband, a good father to her daughters. He had provided for them, loved them, and protected them. But Victoria was never content. She wanted more power, more wealth, more control. And she was willing to do whatever it took to get it. She remembered the day she had decided to kill Sir Maxwell, her husband and the stepfather of her daughters. The planning, the scheming, the execution. It had all been so calculated, so cold-blooded, and yet it had been so necessary. Victoria's eyes snapped back into focus, her gaze locking onto the whiskey in her hand. She knew the voices in her head were just her own guilt, her own conscience, but they seemed so real, so menacing. She took another swig, trying to silence them, but they only seemed to grow louder, more insistent. She reached for a cigar, her hands closing around the smooth leather case. She pulled one out, the sweet aroma of tobacco filling the air as she puffed on it, the smoke curling up towards the ceiling. The whiskey in her hand seemed to ignite a small flame dancing in the darkness as she took another puff of the cigar. I'll never ever go back to being the old me again, vulnerable and poor, powerless and weak. I've tasted the sweetness of wealth and power, and I'm addicted. I'll do whatever it takes to protect myself, my empire, and even my lousy daughters, because despite their insolence, they're mine, and I'll be damned if anyone tries to hurt them. Her voice cracked with raw emotion. Her hands trembled, the whiskey glass shaking in her grasp like a leaf in a hurricane. The cigar smoke curled up towards the ceiling, an eerie glow that cast an otherworldly light on her twisted features. I fought too hard to get where I am. I've clawed and scratched and killed to build my empire. And I'll fight even harder to keep it. No matter what it takes. No matter who I have to destroy. I'll do whatever it takes to maintain my grip on power. Because in this world, you're either the predator or the prey, and I'll be damned if I ever become prey again. Just then, her phone rang again, the sudden sound slicing through the tense silence. Victoria snatched it up, her voice sharp with impatience. What now? A soft, chillingly familiar voice came through the line. Hello, Victoria. Miss me? For a moment, her eyes froze. Her heart skipped a beat. She couldn't breathe properly, her lungs constricting as if a tight band was wrapped around it. She knew that voice too well.